Hey guys, so today we're going to talk about an AI-driven growth management platform, and here to help me address that is Dale. How you doing?
Great, David. Good to be on the call.
Oh, no, it's an absolute pleasure. So, can you walk us through a little bit about what you guys do, like as far as your company?
Yes, absolutely. So what we do is we help expanding retail chains and service chains understand what they need, what they can do in their business to drive more sales and profits. And one of the things that I hear from managers all the time is, hey, we've got enough data. We have all this data. We just don't know how to make sense of it. So that's what we help do is we use AI today and help managers sort through all of that data, kind of like a management coach, so that they can understand, well, what is it that specifically, what action can I take today to increase my sales, improve customer loyalty, make sure my frontline teams are happy so we can keep our doors open and drive profitability.
Okay, so it's basically like a consulting company where you guys help them, or do you guys go beyond that?
Well, we go beyond that. Maybe I could just step back and say where it came from. I grew up in retail, so I understood at a very early age that, if the customers aren't happy, you don't eat.
Yeah.
So then I went on to technology, and this was at the advent of the personal computer. So I am dating myself here, but what I did from as my first job was to help enterprise companies adopt technology without disrupting their operations, or helping them to adopt technology without fear and without resistance. And from there I went on to I took a little break. I went to Thailand, came back, and fell in love with Thai food and the food and the culture, and ended up in opening Thai restaurants. So I had 4 Thai restaurants with a retail component and a manufacturing plant, and all of this happened in a very short timeline. So I drew upon my systems expertise and thought, I need a way to just manage this from my phone, because I can't be in my businesses. I don't know what's happening on the front lines. And that was my key to success, is really understanding, what do my customers want? How can I give them more of that? Where are my team members struggling? What help can I give them? Is marketing throwing spaghetti at the wall, or is it actually delivering sales? And so I designed a system very, very early on with, spreadsheets and iPads, and you'd laugh at it today. But that was the precursor to our platform, our growth management platform. And with that, we won Consumer Choice Awards for 5 years running, competing at some very large brands. We also were able to create double industry average profitability. So when I left those businesses, I looked around and thought, somebody's got to be doing this. And there wasn't anyone. So that's why I stepped into the role of CEO of Drive Growth Management, is to bring this platform that helped me basically put my growth on autopilot, and bring that into current day form, so that mid to emerging retail chains that have to compete with the big companies that already have all of these AI tools, it levels the playing field, and it allows them to compete more effectively and more profitably.
Yeah, no, that's incredible because I mean, having that data is like invaluable. And this kind of seems like it grew very organically from what you're telling me. So it's not like you just came up with the idea or the concept, like you've actually had real world experience in it to where like it actually came from a need. So I think that's really incredible. Well, when did you guys start this, or when did you start the company?
Drive Growth Management was started in 1997, and we have been through a number of renditions. So when I first started the company, I called it Drive Business Intelligence, which at that time I said, hey, you can take all your KPIs, and I can tell you exactly which ones you need to turn your attention to and fix so that your sales go up. And people said, wow, that's cool. But you could see their eyes glaze over with business intelligence. It just wasn't something that was understood or appreciated at that time. So I thought, okay, well, what do people really care about? Well, they care about their customers and their customer experience. And essentially everything you do in your business is all about your customers. So then we rebranded to DriveCX. But then now what I found is that, CX is has a very, very narrow definition. And really CX is everything. Do we have enough inventory? Is our operations running smoothly? Are our team members trained well? Because we know that unhappy team members make for unhappy customers. So it's really a much bigger picture to be able to deliver a consistently excellent customer experience, which is what everyone's objective is, or at least should be. And so that's why we recently rebranded to Drive Growth Management. And with the advent of AI, it just took it to a whole new level, because AI is pervasive. It's going to be in everything. And what I find out there is that mid-sized retailers understand they need to participate, but they're not seeing the ROI on it. They're not seeing where they can actually make money by using AI. So they're kind of putting it on hold. It's also a little bit daunting. Where do you start? So we basically have the software, but we also have a 5-step process that we use to say, okay, well, how are you going to differentiate your brand? What do you do better than anyone else? And then let's start connecting with your customers and really understanding if what you think the value that you're delivering to customers is actually what they appreciate about you. And is there anything they want you to fix? And then moving along to employees, well, team members, frontline team members. Best Buy, the new CEO at Best Buy, his first thing was to put a tag on his jacket that said CEO in training. And he spent, this is Herbert Joly I'm talking about, he spent the first 3 months at Best Buy just talking to team members to find out what they knew about the business, because they are a pipeline to customer knowledge. And then from there, we look at, okay, is our marketing actually bringing people in the door? And then is anything broken in our business? Do we need to fix something? Is something stopping others from driving, from customers doing business with them? So that's the full circle. I call it the growth engine or the relationship growth flywheel. And it does take a little time to kick off, but it is, once that flywheel starts turning, it does pick up with momentum, and it actually, you will see the results in your leading indicators of growth, which would be, customer satisfaction, team turnover, marketing ROI. But ultimately, you will see it in your sales and margins, and you can track it right back to this growth engine that we help people build.
Wow, that's incredible. So this is really kind of like an overall system where you're kind of diagnosing like the business kind of as you would kind of like a human, where it's like, you're kind of checking their health in all kinds of areas. And that's actually really interesting, because like you can fix a certain part of the business. Like you can give somebody like an incredible amount of leads and but if their lead funnel is not efficient and they're not able to track all that information, if when they get to them, that's like a one-time sale, you don't have any retention, like it's really just like you're kind of putting a Band-Aid on something. So the way you're doing it is actually quite smart. And I'm sure you have a lot of business insight just from having done this for so long. What are some of the things that you think you've had an advantage of just because you've done it the way you've done it as opposed to somebody else?
Well, I think you nailed it. Is that it's been out there been in development for 20 years, and I've tested it in my own business, and I've been able to get above industry average results consistently for a number of years over multiple locations. And we were servicing with our manufacturing plant, it's transferable to many different industries. So it doesn't have to be retail, it can be service, it can be manufacturing. In our manufacturing plant, we were servicing companies like Costco and Whole Foods, and we needed to be really on with their game as a small supplier. So I used the system to understand, okay, which stores sales are flagging and what is the reason for that, and basically ping managers when there was a problem before it got baked into operations. So before it started really doing real damage to the bottom line, I would get someone in there quickly to fix the problem. And one of the things that I notice with managers is that you get comfortable in a certain arena. So like you mentioned, if you're really comfortable in sales, you tend to just, focus on sales and customer retention. But you may be uncomfortable with managing team members, right? Or you may completely ignore the top end of your funnel in marketing, right? So one of the things this is impartial, right? This AI coach basically doesn't allow you to just focus on your area of comfort, because that's what people do. They tend to do more of what they're good at, what they know, and they tend to ignore areas that really need attention because they're not as comfortable. So one of the things that we do is we highlight what's working, we highlight what's not working, but we take it one step further, is we have access to all this data, so we can start to deliver recommendations for not just, hey, you got a problem with your teams, you got to make them happy, but, here's some of the things that you can do to increase your ENPS, or your team happiness, which in turn increases team retention, which in turn has a very large impact on your bottom line. So things like that, just getting a impartial, holistic view of your whole company, as opposed to just focusing on one area that you're comfortable with.
That's incredible. And so when you find these issues, like, I don't know, whether it be something in operations or in sales or whatever, and this is something that you need to fix, do you guys have your own AI tools that you are able to offer? Do you guys just recommend things? Like how does that process go about as far as fixing it?
Yeah. Okay. Good question. So we do have what we call a management coach, and this is basically we're gathering all of the information, all the information that's available to us. It doesn't have to be everything, but the more information you can put in the model, the more you get a holistic view of your company. So in the platform, the core offering is to look at all the data and help you understand where the opportunities are to remove barriers to growth and also to amplify things that are working. But you also have to get data into your system. And one of the things that we do is we also have a number of front-end applications. So for example, we have a customer service app. And I don't know how many times you go into a store and you wander the aisles for 15, 20 minutes trying to find something. And if you don't find it, maybe you leave without it because you've only got so much time to shop. Well, what we did is we did a QR code that goes with everyone that gets the software, that gets the customer management software. They also get a QR code that can be connected to a planogram. So you, David, could walk into a grocery store and with your list and say, peanut butter, where is it? And it'll say, aisle 42, top shelf. Because 95% of help requests in a store is where can I find? And we don't need people to answer those questions. We can do it with self-serve applications, customer self-serve applications. And many customers just, when I interviewed 60 people and they all said, hey, I'd love that. I'd love to be able to just go in and go boom, boom, boom. I can find everything I want and get out of there. Now, the other thing we do though is we don't want to lose that human connection, right? So the other thing we can do is we can use AI to identify what is the nature of the request. If they can't find peanut butter on top shelf and they want to ask someone, hey, is there any in the back or when are you getting it in? Should be able to just ping and direct connect to an associate who can answer that question. So we look at all of the employees or team members, associates that are available at that particular time, and we direct connect them with the customer so that they can ask their question on their phone, or he can come over or they can come over and say, okay, well, here's peanut butter, just didn't get to unpack it yet. So we have a number of different tools like that help to serve more customers with less team members and leverage AI in interesting ways.
I have 9 stores I want to recommend you to because that is that is one of the biggest problems.
Yeah.
Especially, I don't know, it's because I'm like a guy or something, but like when we go into a store and I'm going with my girlfriend, she's so easy to just go talk to someone. I'm like, just wait a second, like I can find it, and we'll end up walking around, and we usually do, but it's just I would love an application like that, and it's like it's honestly I think it's like a much needed thing because we're like as we advance technologically, like these are things that should become kind of standard as we see time go on. So that's actually really cool that you've actually like gone so in depth into the operations part of it, because anytime you think of a management or like a consulting company, especially in regards to AI, you don't really see people that or companies that fulfill something that in depth when it comes to like real like customer retention. Because this is like the difference for a company, I believe, with like really high level growth. Like especially if you're talking about retail, like you're trying. That's like the difference between somebody going to your store or a different brand. Like that's incredible. I actually didn't even know that even existed as a service. So definitely hats off to you. It's really cool technology. Is there any other AI tools that you guys use besides that?
Well, yes. So, one of the things that we do is after every service transaction, for example, we will text that customer a comment card. Now, usually in an age where we're just inundated with requests for feedback, it's hard to get a good response. And so the typical feedback response rate is less than 2%. I think in Home Depot it was 0.02%. So what we do is we text them while emotions are running high, because emotions are drivers of action. And so if they just had a really good experience, or they just had a really bad experience, you're much more likely to get them to just respond in the moment on their phone, rather than if you don't give them a venue to respond, they could go on social media and then your review ratings on the internet go down. So one of the things we do is we send that immediately, but what we can do by sending that we can match that to the employee that or the team member that served them and say, okay, what knowledge gaps does this team member have? We can then use AI to recommend training modules and send that directly to the team member's phone. And not only that, they can go through it on the fly, even know if they're on the way to work on the bus, but they can also, we're working on a training avatar. And what that does is that does real life role-playing scenarios using an AR avatar to pretend you're a customer and put that team member in the exact same situation after they've completed the training module to see if they've actually, it's easy to memorize skills, to see if they actually have incorporated that knowledge into an actual on-the-job skill that they didn't have before. So that's just another way of inserting AI into frontline applications.
When you start talking about technology like that, it really makes you think where like even if it's just at a place like Home Depot, that it could really elevate kind of like the level of even like the amount that your job is worth. Because now if you're talking about this level of training and precision and you're trying to get such customer satisfaction at such a level, it's like this changes everything. I think it's so cool because even it makes sense. Even like the thing I thought was really smart is to get them before they're able to like make a review or something, because then it even feels better probably to like sit there and text, and because you're able to pick the exact employee, you feel like you're actually doing something to alleviate the problem instead of just complaining, and it feels like you have a direct line. So it's so good in so many ways. I'm just really marveled by the technology.
Thank you.
Um,
Well, it's really fun to tell you about it. I'm really excited. And the other thing you can do is, it's really hard to get customers' attention. So if you have their attention with a comment card that gets text after a service interaction, send them a gift. And then use that gift to get them back in the door more often. So we really look at full circle. What are all the opportunities that are available now with the AI to be able to get customers in more often? Create that fanatical brand loyalty that I'm taking a little sidetrack here, but I remember my first customer support call to Apple, and I got on the phone and I had a problem. I was really frustrated, and they said, "Oh, we'll call you back." And I thought, "Oh yeah," put down the phone, and I hadn't even released my hand from the receiver when I got a phone call back. "Hey, this is Apple. How can we help?" And it's those kinds of that level of connection and that level of responsivity that makes brand loyalty for life, right? That's the differentiator. And if we can make that available to the smaller brands, the big brands are working on this. If we can make those kinds of competitive advantages available to mid-sized retailers and service companies and restaurants, they then can do things probably better than the big brands can do. They can find their little niche and what they can do to delight their customers in ways that the big brands can't.
Well, I think that helps everybody because anytime you have that level of competition, I mean, it pushes the level of service up for everybody, and it creates opportunities for small business. I really don't believe that this was something that they really had an opportunity into. That's so good. It's great. Like even as a small size business, to be able to like get something like this is like great. What are some brands that you've worked with that you're working with right now?
Yeah, so most of our customers have been in the pharmacy space, and we've had a number of different. We started out in restaurants. There's a local chain called Romer's Burger Bar. That was our first customer, and that was pre AI. And then during COVID, that was a challenge because we went through there. We were basically putting our payment app. Getting feedback on high resolution payment devices were just coming onto the market. And so we invested in a payment app where you can get feedback right on the payment device. But at the same time, we were about to launch and we had a lineup of restaurants available to go. COVID hit and you could no longer use payment devices. And then I would be calling up, VP of operations of restaurant chains and they'd be saying, "Don't talk to me. We just closed 20 locations," So I kind of took a step back and went, all right, well, who's making money right now? We got to eat, so grocery stores. We need our drugs, so pharmacies, and then we're making our homes beautiful because we're spending so much time. So retail, home improvement, and hardware chains. So that's where I have been focusing post COVID. Yeah.
No, it's definitely a lot of job security in regard because yeah, when COVID came, it really shook a lot of businesses up, and I think it really tested kind of like the endurance and like really like CEOs really to I couldn't imagine managing like a company at that time with employees and just going through that. I was very fortunate kind of just to start kind of like right after that, so but that's incredible. And to that honest to be going for so long also isn't a testament to itself that you've been for like 20 years, right? Like or longer than that, right? You said it was in 1999.
Not that was my restaurant chain and manufacturing companies. So that's where I started to design the system, but the software company hasn't been around as long as that. We were at the point we're very fortunate to be at the point where we can incorporate AI. Because it's very exciting and there's just endless possibilities. And we already had the platform to just plug it into. So we're, if you look at, I read an article the other day that was about quote unquote SaaSmageddon.
I've been
SaaS,
seeing a lot of
AI's ready,
that.
right? And single function SaaS companies are going to be challenged in the next little while. And so, one of the things I'm very grateful for is that we are a platform and we can plug and play, a broad range of frontline applications. And typically we can offer them at a lower price because, if you have single function company, you still have the same overhead. You still have to have staff, you still have to have sales, you still have to have, all of that margin. Whereas if you have a multifunction platform, that has more longevity, it's more flexible, and your cost of doing business is spread over, multiple applications, so you can come to market at a very reasonable price.
Yeah, and you could split and also what's good is that you're not really selling the customer something that they don't need or something like you're trying to plug in your solution to their issue. Like I love the way they do it where you're kind of almost doing like a business audit and you're like, okay, like you might not need this side of it. You might be good on leads, but we're going to focus on your operations. And I think that's honestly the best way to do it. And just because now the way that like things are kind of growing, AI has so many different purposes and there's so many different tools. Like to be able to actually pivot like that in a space, I
Yeah.
think is going to be almost like the new standard. And I saw that too about the SaaS companies that they're like, I literally actually just got off of YouTube where I was watching that because now Claude, I don't know if you've seen this, but Claude is advancing at such a high level. I mean, some of the tools that are on Claude, before I think the big thing used to be like N8N flows, where it was like, you start to connect and people were thinking like eventually you're going to be able to link these AI systems together in order to do amazing things. But because Claude now has the integration to kind of like go into your computer and kind of like do everything for you, it's gotten to the point where it's like the future where you could literally like once you set it up, you could have it like, message people for you, go into your inbox, your email, like do all these things. And then all those things can be interconnected. So I think that the future of AI is just the potential is it's so crazy because we're also in the AI space, but
Yeah.
it's one of those things that being able to pivot forward like is going to be I think one of the crucial steps. And you're clearly like I could tell you have the insight for it just because of everything you've been able to do and how you're using the AI. I think you're at the frontier of that stuff. So um I'm excited to see what else you'll be able to implement in just probably a couple of months the way it's going.
Yeah, one of the things I've been doing a number of roundtables for executives about AI and how they're using, just so they can have conversations about how they're using AI to improve their profitability. And the big takeaway is that it's overwhelming, that there are so many ways to get started. So all these tools are out there. But where do you start? And you, as a mid-sized brand, you can only turn your attention to so many things at one time. So, what I really like is having a framework to make those decisions. Starting with what is it that we do better than any other brand? We have a little AI driven utility that basically goes in and creates a brand growth strategy. And the reason why that's important is because every brand does something better than their competitors. Hands down, without question, there's something that you do better than anyone else. So what we do is we look at, okay, well, what are your customers saying? So you can understand. So we scour the internet and go, what are your customers saying about your brand? And what can you learn from that? What are your competitors doing? What is your SWOT analysis, but with a little bit of a twist? So not just SWOT, but looking at what's coming down the pipeline that's either exciting or threatening, how does your current SWOT stack up? Where's your vulnerabilities? And then we start with that all that information. We start applying things like Jim Collins' strategy for his hedgehog strategy, which is where you identify what you can do better than anyone else. And then we look at the blue ocean strategy. Okay, so having all this together, how are you going to leverage that? How are you going to use innovation to improve the customer experience and improve your bottom line? And it's amazing what comes out of that. I don't know if we have time, but I could share a story about what comes out of that. But
Yeah, please.
ultimately, it's a brand growth document that you would then use to make your decisions around resource allocation and around technology innovation. So then you know exactly where to start because you're 100% focused on widening the gap between you and your competitors through innovation.
Yeah, no, that's incredibly insightful. I mean, this is the first time I'm hearing about those things, but it sound incredibly interesting. Um,
Yeah.
I think that we're kind of in the same space, right? And being able to like help fulfill kind of on that level with AI. I think we're very fortunate to kind of like have the structure, like you said, that we because I think we have a similar structure where it's like we'll go in and we'll do a business audit, and you're not like because there's so many different AI tools, and if you have enough experience within each of the allocations that you're trying to help, we we do a little bit of operations, but nowhere nearly as much as you guys do. So we would focus on like the other end of it. But is there any other insights that you have that you've learned across like as you've been growing, like just the knowledge that you've picked up?
That's a tough question. There's just so much that daily
I just figured I'd ask you because
changing.
you
I
really
mean,
know your stuff. I was very impressed with the stuff you said about
one
the,
of the things that I think is really exciting is, you kind of alluded to that with Claude, is that there is a standard integration. I believe, and I might be making a fool of myself here, but I believe it's MCO. But basically, it's a standard integration that will connect your data to an LLM or an LMM, a language, a large language model, and basically, you'll be able to not only what we're doing is we're looking at KPI alerts. So we're constantly monitoring to see if there's anything broken, and then we're sending you information. Hey, look over here. Hey, look over there. But eventually you'll be able to, as a manager, say, hey, I've got a KPI alert about this problem. I want to know more about from my data about this problem. So you'll be able to direct connect to Claude and ask Claude about your data and ask any questions you want, and basically acid test some ideas you might have about how you're going to solve this problem, and have Claude look at your data and either validate it or come up with new ideas. And that's something we're working on right now. And
wow.
that's super exciting. So that's taking AI coaching to the next level. It's bringing, and that would happen not in our platform. We would simply link our platform to the manager's LLM software, so that they're using their own interface to LLM that knows about them, but they're accessing data that is being managed and organized by us for AI.
Wow, that's incredible. So you're almost getting like a double reading from each one. So, you're getting the best of both worlds. No, that's crazy. And I just think that right now with I don't think this was even possible before. Like I don't think even this much data really even existed. And I'm kind of wondering when somebody like Claude maybe, or maybe there's already a programmer out there or tool that's going to be able to take like a macro level size of kind of business statistics, right? To where they could be like, all right, all these businesses perform this way, and this is what's good in all their businesses, but on a very in-depth level. You know what I mean? Not just like doing some internet research, like, and so you could be able to kind of put your information into that, and to be able to be like, oh, okay, like this usually works for this type of business, what customers like to see, like stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, we kind of have we work with a mother company that kind of has a similar system like that, but I'd like to see it to where it's just kind of because that's like kind of proprietary, and like we're basically they're basically the only ones that can use it, and they allow us to use it. But like to be the way Claude is going, I feel like that's something that's going to be like on a bigger scale, bigger than only the clients that this specific company has worked with, and I think that's going to be really cool. It's coming into
Yeah,
the
yeah.
future.
And I
Mm.
think, yeah, I think so too. I think it's going to be so powerful. I mean, we have, there are companies out there that we've been looking at, that our customers have already working with, that are looking at traffic, in stores. And so, they'll look at if you stop in front of an item, did you buy it or did you walk out? And so it's making that connection between that personal interface. Okay, so that customer walked somewhere else. Where did they go? And they can track and say, oh, they went 2 blocks down and they bought it at this store. So, why is that? Was it price? Was it product mix? Did they not have the right kind of toothpaste? What was it? So I think there's this balance point between AI and all of this incredible data, and then human interaction. And I think there was a book written, High Tech, High Touch. I think it was 20 years ago now, and it talked about the more technology that is available to us, the more we can automate and delegate to AI, the more we're going to need to find ways to strengthen our human connections, so that people feel seen and heard, and not just a data point. So that I think is going to be really interesting to see. Okay, well, how do brands balance that?
Yeah, absolutely. And what do you think, like, once that happens, what do you think is, as AI becomes more and more leverageable and it becomes cheaper and people are using it, what do you think is going to become more valuable as far as like from us, like from humans?
Well, we all want to be seen, heard, and loved. So, I think it's about just freeing up the time to have personal connections and helping people understand how to manage relationships with trainings and things like that. Because ironically, in an age of social media and digital connection, a lot of the younger generation does struggle with how to make, authentic connections and just talk to people. So, some of this training, this role playing that we can do to help them get comfortable. Um, uh, I think that's what we're really looking at is how can we get better at showing up authentically for our customers and making them feel valued and understood, while at the same time, offloading many of the repetitive tasks to automation and AI. And I think that those that do that really well will be the ones that have the highest profitability and the highest resilience. Because one of the things that happens when you introduce new things and markets change is things break. But if customers love your brand, they don't mind if you make a few mistakes, right? They say that just one mistake will send them off to another brand, but not if you have strong brand affinity. So understanding how to really make your customers feel valued and understood, as well as efficient operations, is the magic formula, I think. What
Yeah, I
about you?
think you hit it right on the head. Yeah. No, I just think that even, but just to your point, I like when I've gone into certain places, like whether it be like a spa or whatever, like it's not always about like the price point. It's about how you're been made to feel. And that is like whether you go into a restaurant or, you go into a place of business, that will trump almost everything. And I think now because we're like it's such a place of efficiency, sometimes that tends to get lost of like, like you go into a supermarket, you don't talk to anybody, you just like grab whatever you need. It's very efficient, but like not all interactions are like that. And I'm sure like the emotional connection kind of is always king. You know what I mean? That's why I think like social media and even politics, how there's just like so divisive has gotten so big
Yeah.
because like emotions are so strong. So the fact that you actually like are like, you know, engaging in both of them while using I think is something that's really cool that I haven't really seen before. But as far as the value where you were asking, like I think that our value really is just going to come from, like you said, connection. I think it's going to come from just being able to do like kind of like the big thinking picture stuff and feeling like when you talk to somebody, it's genuine and authentic and that as I think as like LLMs become more and more knowledgeable, the only thing that they really can't fake is that they could fake emotion, they can feel it, but they can't fake that connection. I think, like you said. So I think that's what
Yeah.
what
Yeah,
I'm
I
taking.
agree. And I think the other thing is, using innovation and automation to make customers' lives easier. So, for example, I'm going to give you the example of differentiation that makes the customer's life incredibly easier, differentiates the brand from all their competitors, and allows them an upsell opportunity. So there was a vacuum cleaner company that had been in business for 20 years, and they were the best. They knew vacuums the best, but there was all kinds of they're out of New York, all kinds of competitors coming in that really weren't as good as them. But how do you make vacuum cleaner repair sexy? How do you create brand loyalty around vacuum cleaner repair? So, they did this process of saying, okay, well, what do we do really well? What is the biggest pain point when you get your vacuum cleaner repaired? Well, if you're New York, you got to, get it in the elevator. You got to go down. You got to get it in your car. Or you got to get an Uber, and you've got to drive it to the vacuum cleaner repair shop. Then you've got to, go back home. Then you're without a vacuum cleaner for 2 weeks, and then you have to, do the whole thing again, go get in your car, get the vacuum cleaner, schlep it back up to your apartment. So they came up with the idea like, all right, well, why don't we remove that pain point? 100%, just gone. So now what they did is they said, okay, we'll send a car to pick up your vacuum cleaner, and we'll give you a replacement vacuum cleaner so you're not without one. And after we repair your vacuum cleaner, if you like your replacement vacuum cleaner better, we'll give you a deal on that. So not only did they take all the pain out of having your vacuum cleaner repaired, because they didn't care whether they've been in business 20 years, but they also created an upsell opportunity where, once you've got a new Miele vacuum and it's an old 20-year-old Eureka, you're not going back, right? In your sale. And I thought that was brilliant. I think that, thinking creatively, and one of the things about LMM models is that used right, they can help you think creatively around how to solve customer pain points and how to show up in the market in a unique and creative way. So we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, I've had actually a lot of people tell me that where like I believe I was talking to somebody who's like in the architectural design field, and he was saying that like oh, like AI can't really replace an artist, but what it could do is like help you generate those ideas yourself as an artist, because having that somebody
Yeah.
to talk to and bounce ideas off of, I mean, even for me, it's been it's helped me out a lot in business, just to be able to sit, because sometimes entrepreneurship when you're first starting out can be very, very lonely, and not everyone's going to believe in you. People are going to be asking you why you're doing that and stuff. So like to have somebody that is not only not judgmental, but has a wealth of knowledge that like, basically the whole internet behind you, it's even if it just really is reflecting like information back at you, which it's not, right? It's actually like thinking intelligently, but I think that was one of the key things that really helped me out, I think, when I was starting, and kind of helped me really see the value in AI in the first place. I think that was like really cool because uh AI hasn't been out for long, right? Like I think it's only been like what, two,
No,
3 years where it's like publicly like a lot.
yeah, I
So
mean, adoption rates sky high. I look at the timeline of technology, and first there was transportation, and that got us out of our communities, and then there was communication, and that got us out of our country, and then there was the computing power, and that was automation on steroids, and then there was social media, and that was a digital community of people. That's crazy, and then now there's AI, and where will that go? It's getting warp speed adoption, and will it normalize all of our thought patterns, or will it generate new levels of creativity? It remains to be seen. It's a very interesting time.
I think we're one of the most blessed people as far as in any time in the world up till now in history, that it's just like things are so convenient, and I've gotten this just general sense of knowledge that like even just being in the country we're from, like it's just we're so blessed. And I almost think that technology, like people are even having a hard time kind of keeping up with the technology that's happening. And like sometimes, you go on YouTube, you'll like watch things that are just, I think that there's called the Y channel. It goes into like conspiracies and things, but what they'll do is at the end of it, they'll kind of like base it in real life. So like if they're saying, oh, there's like aliens for whatever, it's like, oh no, they'll give you the factual information, what happens at the end. So you get to kind of indulge in the fantasy for a little bit. And then he's like, all right, no, like that's what it is. But some of the things that he touches on, like free energy and, different things like that are just so great. It just makes you think if something like that really was real, like as fast as we've blown up on this side of technology, if something on that end of technology were to go crazy, like I think it's hard to see us adopting something like that kind of like so quickly and not having any issues behind it.
Yeah,
So
yeah, no, it's going fast. Like Peter Sage was one of the guys that tried to get free energy from space, and he didn't pull it off. But he had all the technology available. He just ran out of money. If you look at Elon Musk, he's looking at, taking quantum computing, which requires, I think it's minus 50 degrees in a temperature to be able to run quantum computing. And so they create these artificial environments on Earth, but he's taking that to space so that he can create, quantum computing stations in space to handle the demand for all of this AI energy.
Oh, that's smart because it's like incredibly cold in space, right? So you don't have to really worry
Yeah,
about cooling. Is that the mindset behind it?
yeah. So
Wow.
keep an eye on Elon Musk and what he's going to do next. But
That's so great.
David, we just met, and I don't know that much about your business. It's been delightful. So I'm wondering if you could tell me a little bit about, what you're doing, what you're seeing out there, and how that relates to maybe this conversation that we're having. And
Sure. Yeah. So basically, what happened is I got into AI kind of like on a whim. I didn't come from this field at all. I wasn't like in the technical side of it. I ended up injuring my leg at work. And in the time that I had off, I had met one of my friends that he basically was friends with this guy named Jordan Lee, and he owns a company called AI Acquisitions, and that company is the biggest AI enablement country in the world. So I was just by chance happened to know him, and as I started working, I was able to just gain a lot of knowledge, and then eventually I decided to just invest, and I created my own company, and just kind of using a lot of the tools that he's already had proven, as far as anything from lead generation to AI voice receptionist to marketing, website design. There's so many different tools. I couldn't name them all, but basically I gleaned from him that one of the strategies that he had was basically the same as yours, that it was massively successful, which is you go to a company and you don't try to like pitch them something that they might not need or try to make something fit like a puzzle piece kind of not fitting in. You kind of do an audit of their business, and there's he has some proprietary like AI that kind of helps you. Like it's still a lot of it is like based on experience and a lot of the stuff that I learned from him. But this AI, what it'll do is it'll put in all this information, and then once you have that information, you're able to kind of diagnose the business, and all this data points get put into all the businesses that he's been able to help, which has been hundreds of thousands, and it helps you kind of come up with a map of where AI would best help their business to kind of go at it like one at a time. I think
yeah,
what's cool about yours is that instead of pinpointing it, you have the ability to kind of work on all of them. And right now, what we focus on is kind of just we have the ability to do multiple things at once, but
mm,
what I like to do is kind of just pinpoint the biggest issue where you can get the most ROI. And we've had some success, and it's been incredible. I'd never thought I was going to be in this field. I never thought that I was going to be working through AI and doing all these things, but it's been an incredible journey. I've met some incredible people. And
yeah.
even doing the podcast has been really great, just all the things that you learn from different people. So it's been great. It's been great. I've had a great time so far.
Well, it
Yeah.
sounds like you really meet your customers where they are, right? You're not trying to just one size fits all. You're saying, where are you and how can I help? Which is so powerful.
Yeah, yeah. It makes the sales process a lot easier because, like, I've had other jobs where I was working retail and stuff, and just like, there's nothing wrong with it, right? Like, just trying to sell your product, but it's just like coming at it from this angle. It just felt a lot. I came from a space where I used to be like a fitness coach. I had lost like a lot of weight, and I met some of my buddies that were bodybuilders, and they did it professionally. So I got into like this, like I was able to help a lot of people like make significant changes within their diets and their shape, and I just saw how that kind of like grew like almost like a snowball effect into all aspects of their life. They were able to have like better lives, and they were able to like even at work they were able to make improvements at work and with their family. So I just felt very fulfilled by that, and I was going kind of down that road, and until I didn't think it would be like that with a business like this, but seeing like being able to help business owners to actually like achieve success and even just like alleviate them from having to be workers inside their own business was like almost the same feeling, and I didn't think it would be like this at all, and it's just been it's been really incredible to be able to kind of do that, so that was it's a nice surprise, I guess.
Nice,
So
nice.
that's
Well, I
been
can
good.
see it in your face. You're very excited about what you do, and I'm sure you've created a lot of a lot of good things out there in terms of success for your clients.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And listen, I appreciate you for coming on. If anybody wants to find your company, if they're interested, like where can they find you?
Yeah. So, I should have had my QR code ready for this, but it's you can find me on LinkedIn, Dale Dubberley, Drive Growth Management, or our a website, drivecx.com, and you can connect with me there. And happy to have just a conversation like we're having today to see if there's anything that I can share with you that would make a difference in your company or your life.
And I'm sure they'll gain incredible insight because even just from this episode, I definitely got some. So thank you so much for coming on, and I
My
appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. Bye, David.